Okay, our ongoing series we're going to continue to do here throughout the whole political show that we've got to deal with on the networks. Decision 2024, WatchDog on Wall Street style. We're going to break down various different issues, candidates here on the program. And a candidate that unfortunately is being, well, they're trying to get rid of this guy. The donkeys want this guy to go away. They don't want any part of this guy. The mainstream media has most certainly gone after him as some sort of kook. You got New York Times, all these other pundits on these things, basically trying to cancel Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now, again, I got a great deal of respect for the guy. I do. I agree with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on all of this? No. And we're going to go through some of that today. But do I have a lot of respect for him? Sure. Of course I do. And he, again, some of the things he's doing, the way he's conducting himself is, I think he's doing it with a great deal of honor. I think that's kind of the way I would put it, quite frankly. So, all right, he's running. He wants to be a Democrat. He's always said he's been a Democrat, but he wants his party back. The DNC has about $2 billion, and they decided Joe Biden is their guy. It's the guy. Unless they decide to get rid of Joe Biden, and even if they did decide to get rid of Joe Biden, it ain't going to be Robert F. Kennedy Jr. they're going to pick. That's, again, he is outside the current realm, donkey thinking. No, they want no part of this guy at all. Okay. And he says he wants to bring people together. I'm going to be doing some quotes from him here. I think we do that, basically bringing people together by telling the truth to people. My dad did it in that way. He talked about uncomfortable issues, but talked about the truth. I think people are tired of being lied to by the government and by the media. And that's an ongoing thing that we've talked about here. It's just a complete distrust in American institutions. And I get it. I mean, how could you trust Americans? How do you trust the government? How do you trust the media after being lied to again and again and again? And that trust is going to take a long time to build back up. He says, my dad ran against an incumbent president in his own party, Lyndon Johnson, during divisive time. I'm running against a larger challenge because I'm facing entire infrastructure that's against me from my own party and big tech and also the pharmaceutical industry. Says, I'm a Democrat. This is my identity, but I want my party back. I'm running for president because the Democratic Party has lost its way. I want to remind the Democratic Party of what we're supposed to represent. Focus on the middle class, labor, the well-being of minorities, a focus on the environment, civil liberties, and freedom of speech. Now, again, these are all things that, again, I don't have any problem with. And again, I don't think that's just the purview of the Democratic Party, the middle class, labor, well-being, minorities, focus on the environment, civil liberties, freedom of speech. Shouldn't everybody be in favor of those things? Again, we can have our issues in regards to the environment and global warming and other things, but we all want to live in a clean place, do we not? I mean, I go right across the board. Do we not want a strong middle class in this country? So again, these are issues that should be important to both parties. He talks about unity and healing the divide. I intend to bridge this toxic polarization that is really destroying our country and tearing us apart. He called his campaign, he calls it a peaceful insurgency, and he hopes will appeal to conservative Republicans, independents, moderates, and liberal Democrats. And again, he talks about the fact that he's not afraid. He'll go on to any media source. And again, I remember seeing him on the O'Reilly Factor way back when. He has no trouble going on Hannity's program or any of the conservative programs on Fox News. He says, I want to talk to media members and voters who share differing opinions in mine, because how else are you going to persuade? To me, that's one of the most important things. As again, when I used to have a talk radio program where we take callers, the people that disagreed with me go to the front of the line. And I made that perfectly clear. Okay, anybody who disagreed with what we were talking about on the program, you went first as far as callers were concerned. I want to have a conversation with that person as long as they can have an intelligent conversation where it doesn't devolve into name calling, because that's what we've become at this point in time. Said, I think we have a lot more in common than what the media portrays. What keeps us apart are things that are rather trivial. We let them feed this toxic polarization. We need to talk. We need to have conversations with people from a wide range of views. Days after a House hearing on censorship, this is back in July, we covered it here on the podcast, where Democrats tried to block Kennedy from testifying. Tried to block. It was gross. It really, what they were trying to do was awful. And it's interesting too. They did a poll after that. The favorability ratings, most people know this, of the 2024 presidential candidates, he has the highest favorability at this point in time. Okay. Again, this is something that he says, talking about President Trump and debating and Biden. He says, I'm not going to attack other people personally. Good for you. I agree with that. I don't think it's good for our country. And what I'm trying to do in this race is to bring people together to try to bridge the divide between Americans. I've talked about that before. It was something we had in college and fraternity and organizations there. You could only talk about the issues and what you wanted to do. You could never say anything bad about somebody else. Kennedy stands for de-escalating what he called poison, hatred, and vitriol. He's gone off on Joe Biden's job performance, but he hasn't attacked him personally. And it's like shooting fish in a barrel at this point in time, especially saw what happened this past weekend with President Biden in Vietnam, and we'll get into that in another podcast. Anyway, he says, if there's a policy I disagree with, like the war, like censorship, like the lockdowns, I'm going to criticize those, but I'm not going to attack the man. I will say whatever he's up to it or not, whether he's making his own decisions, the decisions that are coming out of the White House are bad decisions. And again, he thinks that Joe Biden should debate him, but he's not going to. We all know that that's not the case, and we all know that it wouldn't even be close. Okay, it wouldn't even be close. The Giants Cowboys game, it would be closer in that debate, and we all know that. He said Americans shouldn't feel like we live in the Soviet Union where the party picks the candidates. I think it would be much better for our democracy, and we'd be a better example for the world and improve our credibility with the American people if we actually allowed democracy to function and all the candidates participated in debates and town halls and retail politics. Anybody disagree with that? Because again, you got both. You got Donald Trump. He's afraid to debate at this point in time. He didn't want to bother. He's not showing up. You got Joe Biden most certainly is not going to do it. And the parties like to pick the candidates. And I've seen it again and again and again. I'm gonna go after the Republicans in this case. I'll never forget this. This is when Marco Rubio was coming up in the state of Florida, and the Republican Party did not want him to run for Senate. Did not want him to run for Senate, and they were all behind. Guess who it was? Charlie Crist. Okay, Charlie Crist would sign on. He would, join the Communist Party, the Jedi Knight Party, anything, okay, to keep himself involved in politics. He doesn't care. The Republican Party wanted him. And then, remember, he left after Rubio beat him in a primary. The Republican Party was pissed off about that. They didn't give him any funding. They were actually helping Crist out in the primary, and they weren't supposed to. Then Crist went to be an independent. Then he went to be a Democrat. I wonder if I think Charlie Crist working for that ambulance chasing law firm there, Morgan & Morgan. Is he back working for them again? Anyway, the parties like to pick the candidates. Anyway, talked about Ukraine. One of the big problems we have in our federal government is the addiction to war. President Biden went to Congress and asked for another $24 billion for the Ukraine war. And guess who else wants it? Oh, yeah, Mitch McConnell, a lot of Republicans in the House and the Senate. You do have some conservatives that are pushing back. We have spent $8 trillion on wars since 9/11. If we kept that money home, we would have had childcare, for every American. We would have free college education for every American. We'd be able to pay for our Social Security system. Is he wrong? He's wrong. I know. A lot of emotions today. September 11th. What we did was stupid. What we did was stupid. Okay. All of a sudden, it turned into you're either with us or against us, and coalitions of the willing, and Iraq, and this grandiose vision that George W. Bush had, that if we just showed up somewhere and planted a flag in the ground, that we were going to change cultures that have been around, societies that have been around a hell of a lot longer than us, and all of a sudden they wanted to be like us. One of the best things about America, you can be American by choice. You can be American by choice. So you can't be French by choice. You can't. I'm sorry. There's certain places. Sure, you can have a French passport. I ain't French. Okay. And this is how many places in the world work. It's not how this country works. And if you want people to be like us, you want people to look up to us, that shining city on the hill, you have to do it by example. Invading countries is not the way to go. Not the way to go. And that's what we decided to do. And how has that worked out for us? How's that worked out for us? And other stories, we'll do another podcast in regards to what's going on in Africa and coups and whatnot that we funded. Anyway, going to stay on topic here. I'm the only choice that's going to end the war machine that is going to really focus on rebuilding the American middle class and taming inflation. And again, he's been big on that. And again, little side note, you got to give credit where credit was due when it came to foreign policy. I got to hand it to Trump. Trump did a pretty darn good job. Pretty darn good job. Didn't get us involved in any wars. Okay. But again, we still have this massive war machine that we didn't shrink by any stretch of the imagination. And again, you've got, U.S. senators, I don't know if it's 40 and slip or they're just that stupid, coming out and basically saying, yeah, war in Ukraine and Russia, it's a proxy war. Basically saying that's, what we're doing, fighting Russia in a proxy war. Gun control, he does not believe that, guess what? You can do, the Second Amendment is the Second Amendment. He says we have to do other things in regards to reducing gun violence here. And I couldn't agree with him more on that one. Pharmaceutical industry, he wants to ban, and it used to be this way, wants to ban pharmaceutical companies for running ads on TV for prescription drugs. And, I bounced that back and forth in my head. I was thinking about it. I'm not a physician. Imagine being a doctor today and you got people coming in asking questions. Should I take this drug? Should I take this drug? I saw that commercial on TV. Should I have that? One would think that these doctors would know what to prescribe you. Again, I get it. I didn't like the fact when they started advertising drugs on TV, nor hard alcohol, quite frankly. But anyway, that's just me. Again, he's talked about the dangers of the COVID-19 vaccine. But again, the whole idea that he's completely anti-vaccine is it's not true. That's what a lot of the powers that be want you to think. He admits that he was not in favor of Trump's border wall. This is fascinating. But after seeing the border firsthand in Arizona in July, changed his mind. He said there's a need for increased infrastructure and technology at the border, more segments of a physical wall and sensors in an area where a wall is infeasible. Until the United States can seal the border, he said he doesn't think it's possible to get an immigration reform package through Congress. He visited Arizona, California, early June, met with illegal immigrants, border agents, and other stakeholders. And he said, the Democratic Party thinks our function should be welcoming all immigrants into the country no matter what, and to basically open up the borders. And the experiment has been a disaster, a humanitarian catastrophe. I watched it firsthand. I watched 300 people come across the border and then be processed and sent to locations all over the country with court dates 7 years down the road. There's 7 million people who've come across illegally and have no legal status in this country. Those people are very vulnerable to unscrupulous employers. Again, he got into the bleeding heart side there. We talked about this last week. Schools in New York City, having tens of thousands of kids that are just showing up and the ability to handle all of that. The parents can't work. What are we doing? Is this a solution? And he talked about Biden's open border policy as a way of funding multi-billion-dollar drug and human trafficking operations for the Mexican drug cartels. As president, I will secure the border, which will end the cartel's drug trafficking economy. I will build wide doors for those who wish to enter legally so that the U.S. can continue to be a beacon to the world where diversity and culture make us great. Immigration's good for our country, but this kind of immigration is unfair to everybody. Again, I don't have any problem with any of that. Again, he's sympathetic to the Ukrainian cause and understands that, yes, Russia invaded the country illegally, but he talked about the opportunities that we have had that we've neglected to settle this war peacefully. He said we've turned that nation into a proxy war between Russia and the United States, and he urged Biden to negotiate a peaceful end to the Russia-Ukraine war. And he said, my belief, Russia's not going to lose. Russia can't afford it. Said it'd be like us losing a war to Mexico. And again, he talked about his uncle, John F. Kennedy, and talked about how he wanted to keep us out of the war in Vietnam. And he had sent over 16,000 military advisors. And 1963, he learned that one of the Green Berets died. He asked his aide to give the combat casualty list. The aide came back with 75, and he said, that's just too many. Some of the things that I happen to not agree with here. Again, this is part of some of this, again, left of center economic claptrap that I don't like. Talks about, raising minimum wages to help unions. And we all know that's just bloody malarkey. Especially in today's day and age, you're going to raise minimum wage, the type of technology that they have today. You're going to get to a point in time where people are going to be replaced by technology, robots, screens. It is what it is. And again, I would, like I've always explained here on the program, when it comes to minimum wage, you can raise it. There comes a point in time where businesses are not going to pay more than they can afford. It's just that simple. Okay. There's a cost that employers are willing to pay to employ somebody. If the cost is too high, ain't going to do it. Just that simple. And he talked about, the heyday. Again, this is, it sounds like Make America Great Again. I grew up during the heyday of American economic prosperity. It was in the 1950s and 60s. The archetype of American dream was born. It was not something available only to the lucky few. It was within the reach of most Americans. A single wage earner with a high school education at that time could own a home, raise a family, have vacations, and save for retirement. That's how it should be. If you work hard, you should have a decent life. Yeah, I agree with that. Again, the powers that be, go to Lyndon Johnson way back when, started subsidizing colleges, and this concept out there that everybody and anybody has to go get a college degree, got away from vocational training. You've got kids that are graduating with these degrees that, in essence, they're underwater. They're, 6 figures in debt at 21 years old. It makes it difficult. Makes it very, very difficult. And again, is that changing at all? No, that's not. We could talk about it till we're blue in the face, but every year tuition continues to go up. Yeah, we're starting to see declining enrollments. People are starting to wisen up, and actually businesses are starting to get, wind of the fact, hey, maybe we'll train these people on our own. But that's a big part of it as well. This idea that he's floated as well, creating a 3% mortgage for Americans, guaranteed by the government and funded by the sale of tax-free bonds. I don't like it at all. I think that's dumb. He says you have a rich uncle who co-signs your mortgage, you will get a lower interest rate because the bank looks at his credit rating. I'm going to give everyone a rich uncle, and his name is Uncle Sam. We all know what's going to happen here. Everybody's going to be Oprah. Everybody gets a mortgage. Everybody gets a 3% mortgage. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, that's not how money works. Money needs to be priced properly based upon economic conditions, based upon risk factors. And I don't think that it is the responsibility of we the people to be underwriting people's mortgages. Basically, you're going to do this through tax-free bonds. You're creating another mortgage security backed by the federal government. Yeah, they had a lot of these funky mortgage securities not too long ago, Robert. Okay, and it didn't work out too well. And one of the gimmicks with this is the first 500 of those 3% mortgages would be reserved for teachers. Again, he said both President Trump and Biden are running on platforms that they brought prosperity to this country. But when I travel around South Carolina and other states, I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing it either. My travels either. I'm not. Okay. And Trump, we always could say, we had the greatest economy. No, we didn't prior to COVID. It wasn't the greatest economy ever. It wasn't even close. Again, it's Trump with his exaggeration. I caught a fish this big. Biden, it's just patently absurd. Okay, Bidenomics it's again, this whole thing that he's out there selling to people. Nobody's buying. Nobody. And again, he talked a little bit about real estate and some of the big companies out there buying up single family homes. And again, got a bit of a point there. And you can change some of the tax code and basically forcing the hand of the Black Rocks and the Vanguards and the Straight Streets of the world that have been doing that. But he also recognizes as well, he understands the Billionaires Boys Club in Davos and talks about their great reset and goes off on it. And again, that's something that the left-wingers love. They love it. Great reset, new world order. And, we talked about Klaus Schwab and his idea that you're going to own nothing and you're going to be happy. Yeah. Again, he's gone against all of that. And many other things as well that he hits on. But again, he's got a hell of a lot better platform than Bidenomics. And again, here's somebody that I don't agree with on all of the issues by any stretch of the imagination. But man, oh man, okay, is he a much better option than Joe Biden at this point in time? I mean, of course he is. You think about that. You think about we got a country right now. Is this the best? I mean, that's the whole idea. Decision 2024. I did in the first one. Is this the best we can do? Well, again, right now, you take a look at the donkeys and who they're parading out there. I mean, come on, Joe Biden, seriously? WatchDog on WallStreet.com.